You'll never amount to anything. Why don't you get a job in a steel mill? Are you ashamed of your father? You could work in construction with your brother, or you could work with Bob at the garage. You aren't a musician. You aren't even talented enough to play anything. You could never survive on your own. You will always live paycheck to paycheck. You want to be a wrestler? You aren't athletic. You want to go to college at 16? No way. You have a C average. Why waste your time in college? Why waste your money in college? You aren't smart enough. These are things that I grew up hearing all the time. My name is Mike Trash, and this is my story. I was born in a very poor family. We didn't have the tools to be successful. I was the second of 4 children. My older brother was a dick and caused me to sink into a shell because of the way he used to treat me. He used to physically abuse me on a regular basis and, of course, mentally abuse me. My parents didn't believe me. I have a younger sister and a younger brother. My father was a steel worker, and he was a real hard worker, an honest and stand-up guy. He could fix just about anything, but he didn't know how to say, "I love you." My mother worked in a factory, a chocolate factory actually, up until the time my sister was born, and then she became depressed and her behavior became like a hypochondriac. She never said she loved me. She wanted to be the center of attention, but not in good ways. She would often start smoking and say she wanted to die, and she'd spend all day in her bedroom. We lived in a 4-room house for many years. We had a living room, 2 bedrooms, and a kitchen. We didn't have running water, and we had an outhouse. And for any of you people who don't know what an outhouse is, check it out in Wikipedia. We got our water from my grandfather or my grandmother. They lived next door, so we would carry these buckets of water down. And we heated the place with a coal stove, just a little stand-up coal stove. My older brother and I shared a room, and when my sister was born, my dad added 2 more rooms. This place was getting to be a mansion, 6 rooms, but we still didn't have a bathroom, and we still didn't have running water. So, a poor man's mansion. I was sheltered for most of my life, most of my early life, I should say. There weren't many neighbors. We were in the middle of the country, and in fact, our address was RD1 Harrisburg. That's a pretty lame address, but considering we were like the only one there, it had to be us. So, when I was 13 or so, my grandparents bought a trailer and they put it on their property, and we got to move into their house. So now, all of a sudden, we had running water, a shower, a toilet. That was a big moment for me. I felt like we made the big time. We lived in the country. We had a junkyard, and we had junk cars on the property that we would end up playing in. But we had to eventually get rid of them because the township put an ordinance against junk cars. My first job was when I was 14. I was a caddy at a golf course. I failed miserably. I didn't know a putter from a iron from, well, I knew what a golf ball was. That's about and I still don't know those things. I don't play golf. I play miniature golf. If you want to talk about miniature golf, I'll tell you about miniature golf, but when it comes to the real golf, not for me. I failed at my next job, which was as a dishwasher at a truck stop. I learned a valuable lesson. When this guy comes up to me and says, "You gotta be faster," I said, "If you can do better than me, show me." And he did. That's when I found out he was the owner, and I lasted 2 weeks. Note to self, find out who it is that you're mouthing off before you mouth off to them. So, anyway, at 16 I determined that I was going to try to qualify to go to college. I'd heard there were early entry things, and I decided I wanted to do it. My parents, they said, "Do you want to go to college?" "Yeah, we'll help you. We'll pay for it. We'll take care of it." Yeah. They thought I would never make it because I was a C average student. That's when the SATs came back and I actually qualified. They said, oh, we're sorry. We don't have any money. We can't help you. Sorry, you can't go. One of the many promises my parents broke. But it just made me more determined. I was definitely determined to go. So I did some research, saw that there were all kinds of grants, there were all kinds of loans and stuff, and scholarships. So I qualified for them. In college, my eyes were open to the realities that were life. The first one being, don't believe everything your parents tell you. There's Santa Claus. There's the Easter Bunny promising to pay for your college. They're all not really real. I noticed that in college, people were supportive of their children's dreams. Parents tried to make a better life for them than they had. People didn't have junk cars in their backyards. They don't know what they were missing out on that. I kind of like that. Things started to make sense. Maybe there was a better way. I started observing others, saw what they had and what the world had to offer. It seemed a much bigger world with much bigger opportunities. One thing I learned from my mother was the defeatist depression, and it was starting to overcome. I didn't realize it until someone came up to me and said, when I die, people will remember me as being a depressed person. What? How dare you? Wait, maybe he was right. Maybe my thought patterns came from my mother. I started to rethink my life and attitude. That was an aha moment. I started trying to see things in a different light. Tried to start believing in myself. I started my first band at 17 or 18. I knew from 5 that I wanted to be a singer. Around 19, I started living in my van. I needed a fresh start and had to get away from my family. It was tough because with limited income, I felt this was the best way to start over. Imagine going to college full time and working at $2 and something an hour. I think it was $2.25 an hour, and then I got a raise to $2.35 an hour. And trying to make ends meet just doesn't happen. All the negativity that was clouding my brain, I still do. I have these close friends, these very close friends, to this day. They helped me on my journey. I don't know where I would have been without them. They supplied me with a couch when I needed it. They supplied me with a shower when I needed it. Food when I needed it. Real friends. They're people who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. They're people who encouraged me to look after my dreams. All right. College gave me the insight into all things that were wrong with my life. I started another band at that point. Not a good one. At 20, I was offered a chance to run the video studio at the college. Being cocky, I thought I could do better. Sadly, I lost the job. I enjoyed it while it lasted, but sometimes you make those mistakes and you move on, and you should have stayed at the place where you were. You never know it till it's too late. I decided I was going to be a full-time musician and gave myself a timetable. After 2 years, I had a medical issue that collapsed my lungs and caused me to stop breathing and singing. I was in the hospital for about 2.5 months on a breathing machine. They thought I was going to die, and so did I. They couldn't tell me what was wrong, by the way, but it was a gel that was on the outside of my lungs that was forcing them to collapse. And I had surgery and had it removed. It was a horrible thing that you're going to be on a breathing machine and you don't know how bad it is till you're actually on a breathing machine. When I got out of the hospital, it was the lowest part of my life till then, in that I lost my voice. I sounded like the Godfather. I couldn't find a job. I was living at my parents' on their couch for a couple months. And then I got back to living in a van. I couldn't find a job, so I went on government assistance. They didn't give me any money, but I qualified for this new program where I could go back to school. Now here's the ironic part. At 16, I went to college. At 23, I went to high school. Went to a high school vo-tech, and I learned a trade. So at 23, I was at Dauphin County vo-tech and learning electronics. Never thought I'd see a high school again as long as I live, but you do what you got to do. In the fall of '83, my voice actually came back, and I was out of entertainment for, 9 months, maybe a year. And I was with a band called Apathy, and that's where I met Ken. Ken is this instrumental genius. He was a keyboard player. He owned the PA. That's the guy with the power. The guy with the power is the guy that owns the PA. And I played with them for a while, and I booked all the jobs, and I was having problems with the keyboard player. Or no, not the keyboard player. I was having problems with the drummer. A guy named Al Rott. Not his real name, so don't worry. We don't have any problems with us getting in trouble for saying his name. Anyway, he and I went head-to-head a bunch of times, and eventually I just quit the band. And I wanted Ken to come with me, but Ken hung out there, and I went to start a new band. The band I started was the Mike Trash and the Barking Rats. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a punk band, but we weren't. We were rock and roll. And we started gaining some notoriety. And then one day we got a phone call from a promoter who was trying to fill in a spot for a battle of the bands. And this was kind of odd, but we said we'd take it. Why not? We'll do it. It was at the VIP Club, which was the best club in the area to play. And we get there and we find out that every band that's there is managed by the one guy and the one guy alone. And we figured that they probably picked us because of the name, because they figured that we would lose. So we get there and we do our thing, and then we saw the other band do their thing. The other band really sucked. And we thought, okay, we did pretty good. We got the crowd going, and everyone in the crowd voted for us, we thought, anyway. And they pulled me aside and said, we want you guys back first, but you didn't win. And I looked at him and I said, well, tell me how that other band won, because we clearly outclassed them. And they said, well, it doesn't matter, we want you back first. I said, well, if we lost, we're never going to play here again, I promise you. And of course, we never played there again, and my band was really mad because I told the guy off. And they wanted to play there again. Well, that broke up the band. And that was really sad because we had a lot of opportunities with that band. We had a really, really good band. And it was my attitude, my ego, maybe, that broke the band up. So this is when Ken and I reunited. And we had a project that we started talking about. We wanted to do this computerized rock band. It was really, in the 80s, kind of unusual to do what we're going to do. We were paving the way for where we are today. In 1985, I met my first wife. And we both decided that if I didn't make an impact in music by 25, I was going to find a real job. 1986, I lost my father. That was the biggest blow to me so far. I remember saying that to my brother, I just want to die. He said, go ahead, kill yourself. This was an aha moment that I'll never forget. One of the things I learned is that no one had my back but me. We make our own paths in life. I had so many failures at this point, I needed to look at things like learning opportunities. The death of my father haunted me for at least 5 years, for things I never got to say to him. 1986, I took a full-time job and put my music on the back burner. I got this job at Pack Industries working on industrial and commercial laundry equipment. I made about $5 an hour and worked my butt off. I'd start at 6 and I'd start at 6 in the morning, I'd go till 9 at night sometimes. I'd come home as black as can be because of all the oil and grease and stuff we had to work through. I wasn't really good at what I was doing, and I knew it. I was way over my head. So I left there for another job after 3 years with the competitor, Ramco. They fired me after 2 weeks. Another failure. Whew. I was really lost then. But then, I found the best job ever. Except for the pay. The pay was not so good. I was selling satellite systems. Not like the little ones you see today, the little dish network stuff. I sold the giant 10-foot and 12-foot dishes. This was back in the days when they didn't have the little dishes. And those systems were $3,500, $5,000. They were expensive. And I was pretty good at it. I actually found something I could do, something I was really good at. The problem is there wasn't a lot of money unless I sold. I only made really commission. And I made more money than the owner because I was selling things and he was fixing things. And then I was fixing things on the side, so I got that kind of income too. But really wasn't enough money to make it work because he wasn't advertising and things like that. And it was a tough business. And the other problem was the owner was kind of hard to deal with. When he had a bad day, you knew he had a bad day, and he would take it out on you. And since I was the only employee, he was taking it out on me. And one day he said to me, I want you to take these receivers up to this place, and I want you to have them fix them. I said, well, I'm supposed to be here by the store. What are we going to do? He says, well, you're going to take these up to get them fixed. I said, well, then the store's closed and I'm not making any money. He got really angry at me and he said, if you don't like it, just quit. Okay. Well, I took the receivers up to the place to get them fixed. And while I was there, I filled an application out and they hired me on the spot. To be fair to him, I promised him, to be fair to him, what I did was I said, look, I want to make sure this guy's got a new guy to replace me. It's November. Can I start in January? And they said yes. So I gave the guy 2 months notice. I went back to the place and gave him my notice, and the next thing is history. My marriage was on the rocks, and father-in-law gave me the next aha moment. I was getting tired of being a loser. People around me, including my wife, made me feel that way. He tells me, it's because you give them the power to do that. Take that power back. It was at that point my life was starting to make sense. Don't give your power to someone else. You have the power to take that back. You have the power to make that hurt you or not hurt you. You have the power to either believe them or not believe them. It's up to you what you do with that power. You can give it away or you can keep it. I decided at that point I was going to take control of that power. I love my new job. No matter how much money I made, though, we still couldn't make ends meet. For example, 1 month I made $800 in commissions, plus salary and spiffs and all that. And my wife said, we needed 1,000. The next month, I made $1,200 in commission. I was so excited. Then she tells me, we needed $1,500. So no matter what number I made, she says we needed more. That was kind of weird. As time goes by, my wife starts complaining that no one likes her at work. And she just wished she could have her own job, her own business. I had an opportunity to buy the video store that I had started a small business with. I started renting out video cartridges, video game cartridges, because this video store didn't have any video games. So I started making a deal with her, and I would supply her with the video games, and we would split the income. And I was making money there. A little money, a lot of money. I did okay. She said she wanted to get out of that business, and I thought, well, there's an opportunity. There's a way for my wife to have something to do where she's in control of her life. So I bought the video store. What could go wrong? She said she'd love that. Yeah. Well, anyway, during a business function, they had a speaker. He said something that was another aha moment to me. He said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always have what you already got. It's from the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Okay. I thought about that. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always have what you've already got. Okay, that means you got to do things different. You can't do things the same way and expect the same result. I don't know. I was working really hard to get my income up. It was very inconsistent. Being in a sales job, it's going to be inconsistent. But I kept falling further and further in the hole because my wife was overspending. In 1990, my wife cheated on me in my video store. We talk about it and decided we should go our separate ways. At least it was amicably, we agreed upon it. I was about $60,000 in debt. I figured I would be at D&H for 3 hours, 3 years, because that seemed to be my norm. In 1991, Ken and I went into the studio and we released our first album. It was on this 18 and Over Play Me. It was a compilation album that was meant for the South by Southwest Music Festival. And the person that recorded it was our producer, and he was just showcasing his talent and showcasing the bands that he worked with. So we were able to get on that. And that was an awesome thing for us, because here we are just trying to make our way in the music business, and my life is falling apart on the other side. But this was kind of cool because, you know, I was single now and didn't have any money. I had to borrow the money from Ken. That was a horrible thing. Ken was the guy that he had a lot of money in his account because he didn't have any bills. And I wish that I would be that way. But anyway, so that went, and we felt proud of that. Over the next couple of years, my sales job, I made about 16 to 20,000. That wasn't much money, but it was, for me, the most money I ever made. Then I took my sales territory and I started ramping it up. Started making some decent money. I started making some big money then. I had 3 months where I made, 2 months I made $8,000 a month. And the other month I made $6,000 a month, for that month. That helped me pay that $60,000 off. Actually, I only had $30,000 because I split it with my wife. That helped me pay that off really quickly. But then they capped the spiff program because I made a lot of money those couple of months, and I couldn't make that kind of money anymore. But during that period of time, I was able to do that. And then in 1992, we went back to the same producer, and we were featured on his next release, which was called Beat My Beat. That was exciting. So with the bad, the good came too. And that's the things we got to remember. You know, everything is not bad. Sometimes you think your life sucks and there's no good in your life, but there is good in your life. But sometimes we have to control that. We have to be the ones that control what is good, what is bad. I had some bad things happen. I had some pretty drastically bad things happen up to that point. And if it weren't for the things that I was working on that were good, I may have looked at things at a different perspective. But I always tried to find something to offset it. In '93, I bought my first house. My goal was to buy a house by 30. I missed it by a couple years, but you know, I got it. I did it. In '95, I met the love of my life, my soulmate, my best friend, my world. I got her a job at the same place I was working at. We were perfect for each other. We were around each other 24/7. Things were looking up. We were really happy. The company became an ESOP, which is a company that would be employee-owned place. This meant the more I made, the more that they invested in me. That sounds like a good idea. I like that. And then, in '97, I released my full CD called Love in a Blender. This was the full Uncle Sam Band CD. We made it from beginning to end. We had the same producer, and we had a label called Jaybird, which was eventually bought out by Orchard Records, and we're there till this day. The Uncle Sam Band was a project that Ken and I have worked on since '91, and we were so happy in '97 to have released that. And it was a slow start, but you know, our songs are available now on Amazon, iTunes, Deezer, all the digital sites. You can pretty much find that album, Love in a Blender. And that was a pretty big thing for us. We had achieved another goal. Goals are important because you can landmark things that you've done by looking at things that you have to show for it. So now, not only were we on 2 CDs that were in the South by Southwest Music Festival, which is the largest music festival in the world, and it's catered towards music professionals that go out there and showcase the talent and stuff like that. But not only were we there twice, but we now have our own CD. The next 12 years, I watched my wife get slowly sicker and begin to turn into someone I didn't recognize. She went from being an independent woman, full of life, fun to be around, to this frail woman who became dependent on some very hard narcotics that were prescribed by a pain specialist. To keep myself from going insane, I started the Trash Talking radio show, kind of distract me. And I started with a local pro wrestling school and show. Over the years, it kept getting worse. She kept getting sicker and sicker. My wife started having seizures, and her health was getting worse. She kept a good attitude through it, though. I wondered how she could do that. Because if I was sick like that, I wouldn't be able to. I would like to think I could do it, but she always kept a positive attitude through the whole thing. Well, not always, but most of the time. When I was with wrestling, I worked 16 different states. With the band, I worked 3 different states. That was the thing that seemed to be going well for me. And it helped keep me positive. The radio show helped me keep positive too. Now, you might want to strap yourself down. Because now it got really bad. In 2012, my favorite dog in the world passed away. She was only 6. She was a red border collie. She was the sweetest dog in the world. I love that dog. I've had a lot of dogs over the years, but that one was very special to me. I think she died in May of 2012. Then August 1st, 2012, my brother died of brain cancer and lung cancer, stage 4. That was a hard one to let go too. Even though we didn't get along, I always looked up to my brother. And now I was the oldest. I went from being the second oldest to the oldest. Lost my brother at 52. Lost my father at 50. All the relatives of mine on my father's side died before 50, except one who made it to 69. All of the family members. But now I've lost my brother. That was rough. Even though we didn't get along, we still cared about each other. And then, 3 months later, I had a stroke. I never saw it coming. And I'd ask the doctor, am I going to have any more? Or what's going to happen? They couldn't tell me. I was only 51 when I had my stroke. That was difficult to think that at 51, I could be done. I had to retire from wrestling. I had to really worry about whether or not I was going to live. And I used to kid around with Pam on who was going to die first because, she was sick and I now had a stroke, and I just had no clue where it was going to be. But I got through it. With the radio show, I forced myself to talk, and I got my speech back. I forced myself to work, and I went back to work after, I think, 2 weeks, and forced myself to work. But while I was doing that, I was having a hard time typing because you couldn't control your hands, you couldn't control your motor skills. In fact, when I went to the doctor the day I had the stroke, I wrecked my car. I forgot about that. So, trying to stay positive, trying to fight back against the stroke, I got all of my motor functions back and pretty much my memory and speech and everything. The next thing that happened was the most devastating thing in my life. January 2014, I came home from work, found my wife dead on the floor. Words can't describe what I went through. My best friend was gone. I couldn't talk about it. I told only key people at work. It took me a year to tell my friends. Six months after she died, my new supervisor was trying to get me fired. How cruel could that be? The only thing you have to hold on to is your job. And they wanted to get rid of you. I mean, I was making all my numbers. I was there the longest. I'm guessing they were trying to trim the budget. And at that point, after losing my wife, I couldn't fight back. I was one write-up away from termination when I went to a doctor's appointment. And they said they could give me something to help me deal with the grief, and I reluctantly agreed to take it. Within 3 days, it unfogged my mind. It was a miracle. And I was able to formulate a plan to keep my job. I concentrated on giving them what they wanted while looking for another position inside the company. It was difficult. All the divisions said they couldn't afford me. Then a year later, they restructured, and my friend in another division was able to juggle the numbers and take me in. Then my friend's division split. I lost him, and the new people started. A year after he moved, they started again. Keep in mind, I was making my numbers, and they were writing me up on false pretenses. And petty stuff. I even caught them in a lie. Out of curiosity, I talked to my investment guy. And I said, how soon can I retire? I mean, if I could make it till 62, I mean, I'm 57 now. What do you think? He looked over my numbers and said, why are you still working? I don't know. I don't know. Why am I still working? So I retired in December of 2018. I was 57. I'm doing my music, my radio show. Now I'm acting, script writing, enjoying life. I'm debt free. I own a solar house with battery backup. So if everybody else is out of electricity in the neighborhood, I'm still up. I bought my first brand new car, a Tesla Model X P100D. The fast one. And I'm enjoying life. My assets are probably about $2 million. Not bad for a guy that was living in his van. So what can you take away from all this? Well, I got a lot of things I can take away from all this. Never, ever, ever let people tell you you aren't good enough, smart enough, talented enough, athletic enough. I mean, who are they to tell you that stuff? What do they know? They don't know. Don't give people the power to make you feel helpless, to make you feel you're less than everyone else. Read positive energy books. My favorite is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. There's nothing you can't do if you plan it. Make your plan. Look at someone you know who has done it, has been successful. Ask them for advice. They like to pay it back. We all like to pay it back. Instead of quitting when things get tough, don't give up. Find a solution. There's always a solution. It may not be right in front of you. I never gave up on my wife. I had 2 near-death experiences. I never gave up. And a stroke. Dreams are worth the work. As a musician for 40 plus years, I never gave up the dream. I just took detours and got to write some great songs and featured on some really cool CDs. Then I was doing my own. I'm actually working on 2 right now. One of them is all about my wife. No one gave me the opportunities. I made my own opportunities. You can too. Diamond Dallas Page once told me, write your dreams down. Be accountable. Don't give up. You will fail and fail, but you will learn each time you fail. Learn from the fail and do it again until you succeed. Remember that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I really did come from nothing. I failed a lot. I learned a lot, but I never gave up. You know why they call a doctor's office a practice? Because they're always learning, as we should. Are there failures, or are they learning? When people say I was lucky, I just laugh. Huh. By luck? If by luck, you mean I'm stubborn and I don't give up till I get what I am after? Yeah, okay, then I'm lucky. However, I don't think I am lucky. I've had a challenging life. If you hit on the first try, you may be lucky. I can tell you I never hit it on the first try. I tried till I hit it. And that isn't luck. Believe in yourself. If you don't believe in you, no one else will. There are many times when I acted like I knew what I was doing and was called on it. For instance, here's a funny story. When I first got into music, I used to tell everybody I was a great singer. I was out at a bar one time at seeing my brother's band, and his band leader, came up and said, "Why don't you sing with us?" Thinking I would make a fool out of myself. Of course, I couldn't say no, because then I would admit that I was scared to death. So I looked at their set list and I said, "Okay, I'll do this one and this one." I got up there and I was scared. I didn't want to look bad. I've never sang in front of an audience. I've only sang for practice. I got up there and I did it. You know the one commercial, deodorant commercial, "Never let them see you sweat"? I believe in that. And lastly, live, dream, do, repeat. Diamond Dallas Page also told me, "I never had a bad day. I've had a few bad moments, but not the whole day." I am Mike Trash, and that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.